Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of JRPG Journal. And today we are going to talk about the PS2 classic, Persona 3. Obviously, as you guys know, Persona 4 is my favorite game of all time, but I really haven't talked much about Persona 3 unless you've caught me and Austin Yorsky's Persona 4 versus Persona 3 discussion. And if you haven't, then this will be really your first foray into what I think about Persona 3. And for those of you that have played both games, know that they're similar in both structure, visual style, gameplay loop, and whatnot. But there are some pretty big differences, both tonally and gameplay-wise, that separate 3 and 4 and kind of divide the camps. So for context, I played Persona 3 after Persona 4, both of them being on PS2. This was back in about 2010. I had just moved back from Korea, and I was really kind of trying to catch up because I hadn't really dug too much into the PS2 era, let alone the PS3 era, outside of the latest Final Fantasy and believe it or not, Madden. That's pretty much all I ever bought was the latest Madden and Final Fantasy. And with Persona, I just had heard that it was this really great mix between, like a classic JRPG and then the Harvest Moon sim elements. And so I thought, wow, I got to really check this game out. And I marathon Persona 4. I loved it so much. You guys know how much I enjoy that game. And so I knew there was a third, Persona 3. And I believe the PSP version had just come out, or it was just coming out. But I really wanted to play the PS2 version because I had found the FES edition at a GameStop, but this is when they were still carrying PS2 games. And, I thought I'd pick it up, give it a try since I really liked Persona 4. And the thing that struck me immediately was that the game was much, much darker in tone in so many ways. Like Persona 4 is like this happy, the color is yellow. It's like a very bright, cheerful game in a lot of ways, although obviously you're dealing with the murder mystery. Persona 3, to summon your persona, you quite literally have to shoot yourself in the head with what they called the invoker. And that was such a dark visual. Like every single time I fought a battle, I'm shooting myself in the head. It was crazy. And then also sort of the theme of the game was they're trying to figure out what's the dark hour? Where does this come from? And every time that happens, basically there's an extra hour right at midnight or right after midnight. I forget. It's been a long time since I played it. And basically everybody gets trapped inside these coffins except the team that knows how to the SEES team, I believe is what it is, SEES. They're able to walk around that time, and they come across this tower, and basically they're just trying to get to the top. What is causing this? And quite honestly, the design is not nearly as interesting as Persona 4, because in Persona 4, more or less each dungeon is themed around a specific character, and it represents their personality, whereas the tower in Persona 3 is more or less just more of the same. You just keep going up and up and up and up, and then finally get a save point and so on and so forth. But that was a really interesting shift tonally, because I liked Persona 4 so much for its happy, jolly attitude. It was just such a fun game. And, I still loved the loop of 3, but there are two things that I didn't necessarily like, or made it harder for me to really enjoy the game as much as I really wanted to. And the first one was the stamina system. Now, in Persona 4, you could basically dungeon crawl until you were low on life or items, or you just were bored. But in 3, you had a stamina system. If you stayed out too long, you get fatigued and you had to go back. And that made it hard to progress at certain times because you felt like you couldn't go as long as you really wanted to. And that was unfortunate. I really felt like I wanted to just go as long as I wanted to get, because there, it hit a lot of, there were checkpoints where there weren't save points on every level. Like you had to go up a certain amount, and the fact that your stamina was running low, it made it harder to progress. And then the other thing was that you couldn't control your party members. And this is my absolute biggest gripe with Persona 3. And I know they fixed that in the PSP version, but the version when I played it didn't give you the ability to control your party members. And it, for the most part, that plays out okay. But I have to tell you, I have to admit something to you guys. I could not beat the final boss in Persona 3 because of this. If you've ever got to the final boss, you'll know that basically it changes weaknesses, it changes what kind of attacks it does, and basically my team members just kept doing the wrong attacks. I'm like, oh great, now it's weak to something else, but they would not do the attack I wanted to. I'm like, great, now we can weaken it. Oh, you're gonna heal instead, or you're gonna buff a party member. Okay, well, I guess we're gonna lose now. And for anybody that's played it also knows that that's a very, very long battle. So to get that far and to just have one little screw up that you can't even control was just infuriating to me. And so I tried 3-4 times. I'm like, you know what? I just can't do this. So I'm gonna turn this off, and I'm gonna watch the ending on YouTube. And I'm so ashamed that that's what it came to. And I kind of want to replay the PSP version just to say that I beat it, I completed it. And yeah, it's just a bummer that happened to me, because I really enjoyed the characters. There was spoiler alert, one of your characters actually dies in the middle of the game. That's right. Like, it's so crazy, because in Persona, it's not necessarily like that. Like, nobody in the main party dies. So for somebody to die was crazy to me. A lot of JRPGs don't do that, or they save it for like the end of the game, or like in a kind of a big moment. And not that this wasn't a big moment, but it was weird for that to happen. And I still loved the cast. It was a little bit more kind of more serious in tone in a lot of ways. Well, like I said, serious in tone, but some of the characters a little bit more serious. Like Mitsuru is like all Miss Leader, like we got to just get the job done and stuff like that. Yukari's a little bit more playful, but in general, I just feel like the cast was not as memorable as Persona 4. It probably helps that I played Persona 4 twice and watched the anime multiple times and played Persona Q and Persona 4 Arena. But that being said, I still really, really love Persona 3. I love the world. I love the soundtrack. I love just that it brought this style of game into a new era. I mean, it introduced social links. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, I have not played Persona 1 or 2, either of Persona 2s. But as far as I understand, it introduced social links, and that is one of my favorite aspects of Persona, of any games, just how you can bond with your characters, and then in turn, it makes them stronger in battle. It's just a really cool gameplay mechanic, and I can't wait to see how it plays out in Persona 5. But yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts on Persona 3. A little bit darker in tone, a little bit more frustrating, and I played it after Persona 4, but at the same time, I still really enjoy it, and I would always recommend it, especially if you're a big fan of JRPGs and you have not played it. It's a little bit of a different vibe, something a little bit more different, because JRPGs, as you know, are typically a little bit more upbeat, and this one is very morose, very dark, has a very different vibe to it. So yeah, guys, let me know what you thought of Persona 3. Did you play the original, the FES, or the PSP version? Were you like me? Were you very frustrated with the battle system? Yeah, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. One of my favorite parts of making these types of videos specifically is, getting to share my story and then hearing your guys' experiences with a particular game. So I can't wait to see what you guys say about Persona 3. And once again, thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.